Maria Gonzalez was out in the driveway of her little two-story home in Oakwood Estates, just outside Dallas, Texas, tossing a worn basketball back and forth with her 12-year-old son, Carlos. It was one of those warm Texas evenings where the air still held onto the day's heat. She was laughing as Carlos tried to do a fancy spin move and nearly tripped over his own feet. That driveway had become their spot. After the divorce 2 years ago, this house was the first real thing they owned. No more cramped apartment hallways, just their own space. Then the mailman's truck pulled up. Maria wiped sweat from her forehead and walked over. Among the usual bills was a thick envelope from the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association. She tore it open right there, still holding the basketball under one arm. Inside was a formal letter from Karen Whitaker, the HOA president. It said Carlos had been caught on camera bouncing the ball against the garage door. Twice. The letter demanded they immediately stop what it called unauthorized recreational activity in vehicle access areas and pay $15,237 in fines and potential legal fees. Maria blinked. She read it again. $15,237 for a kid playing basketball in his own driveway. She looked up. Carlos was standing there, still breathing hard from playing, his sneakers squeaking on the concrete. The smell of barbecue smoke drifted over from the neighbor's backyard, someone grilling ribs like it was any normal Tuesday the 4th. "Mom, what's that?" Carlos asked. Maria didn't answer right away. She just stood in the middle of the driveway as the sun dipped lower, turning the whole street that soft orange color. The garage door had two tiny scuff marks, barely noticeable, but according to the letter, those marks were enough to threaten their home. Karen Whitaker had signed it personally, in that perfect, steady handwriting. Maria felt her stomach drop. This wasn't just a warning. This was them coming after the one safe place she had built for her son. The place where he could finally be a kid without worrying about neighbors complaining through thin apartment walls. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just kept staring at the letter while the barbecue smoke kept curling through the air like nothing in the world was wrong. That was the moment it hit her. This wasn't going to be a simple fix. These people were serious. The next few days turned into a blur of paperwork and frustration. Maria tried calling the HOA office during her lunch break at the hospital. She explained how Carlos was just a kid burning off energy after school, how the driveway was their only real outdoor space. Karen Whitaker picked up the phone herself. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant, like she was discussing the weather. "Mrs. Gonzalez, the rules are very clear. Vehicle access areas are not for recreation. We've had complaints." Maria gripped the phone tighter in the break room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "But it's our driveway." He barely touched the door. Karen didn't raise her voice once. "We sent you the violation notice on Tuesday the 4th. Another $312 will be added if this continues. And we do have to protect property values for everyone." Maria hung up and stood there for a second. Then she laughed, a short, weird little chuckle that didn't belong in that moment. Not angry laughter. Just this strange, broken sound while she stared at the cracked tile floor. She didn't even know why she was laughing. Things got worse fast. Another letter arrived 3 days later. This one claimed Maria was creating a pattern of non-compliance. They'd started telling other neighbors that the Gonzalez family didn't respect community standards. Maria found out when she bumped into Mrs. Alvarez from down the street at the community mailboxes. The woman gave her a tight smile and quickly walked away. Then came the real twist. Maria filed an appeal and asked to see the camera footage. What she got back was only partial clips, the ones that showed Carlos playing. The camera had apparently only started recording properly after a specific resident complaint. That resident, someone connected to Karen's circle, the same family that wanted the entire street looking like a magazine cover. Maria sat at her kitchen table that night, papers spread everywhere, the smell of burnt toast still hanging in the air from Carlos's after-school snack. She picked up the phone again and called Karen one more time. "Look, I don't know what you want from me," Maria said, her voice cracking. "It's a kid playing ball. This is getting ridiculous." Karen's reply was ice cold and perfectly polite. "The board has reviewed your case. We must follow the covenants. Further violations will result in legal action totaling $15,237. That was the moment the anger really hit Maria like a truck. Not just because of the money, but because this woman was using every single rule in the book to crush a 12-year-old's simple joy. And she did it with a smile in her voice. No yelling, no emotion, just pure, calm enforcement that felt like slow suffocation. Maria realized this wasn't about two scuff marks on a garage door anymore. This was about power. And Karen Whitaker had all of it. The pressure kept building like a slow leak no one could fix. First, the HOA put up bright yellow warning signs near their driveway, visible from the street. Unauthorized activity prohibited. Maria came home from her night shift at the hospital one morning and saw Carlos standing there staring at the sign, his basketball tucked under his arm like it was suddenly illegal. They stopped using the garage for play, but that wasn't enough. Neighbors started avoiding them. At the community mailboxes one afternoon, 3 different people suddenly remembered they had somewhere to be when Maria walked up. The friendly waves from last year were gone. She felt the shift in the air, that quiet judgment hanging over the whole block. Her son began eating dinner in his room instead of at the table. The house that once felt like their safe haven now carried a heavy silence. Money got tighter too. The legal threats meant Maria had to pull extra shifts. She'd come home at 11:47 p.m. some nights, bone-tired, only to find another envelope from the HOA taped to the door. Karen Whitaker's signature was always there, neat and emotionless, like she was checking off a grocery list. One night in the kitchen, Maria sat alone at the small wooden table under the dim light. The fridge hummed softly in the background. She looked around at the walls they had painted together, the crooked picture frames Carlos helped hang. For the first time, she thought about selling, packing up and leaving Oakwood Estates behind. The idea made her chest tight, like she couldn't breathe properly. This house was supposed to be their fresh start. Now it felt like a trap. She whispered to herself, "How did it get this bad?" But there was no answer. To this day, I still don't fully understand why Karen pushed it so far. Some things just don't add up no matter how many times you replay them. Maria stared at the stack of papers on the counter. Fines, warnings, appeal denials. The fight had drained everything out of her. She almost gave up right there. Almost called a realtor the next morning. The weight of protecting her son while losing her home felt impossible. Then came March 17th. Everything changed in a way no one saw coming. Fawn Bon. Truyan Lua Maria decided she wasn't going down without a fight. She spent the next 2 weeks quietly gathering everything. Screenshots of the letters, blurry camera footage, copies of the ridiculous fines. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, she sat on her front porch with her laptop, the same spot where she used to drink black coffee and watch Carlos play. She posted the whole story on the neighborhood Facebook group. Not a rant, just the facts. With a simple video of Carlos holding his basketball, standing next to the yellow warning sign. At first, nothing happened. Then the replies started coming in. One mom said her own son got a $450 ticket for drawing with chalk on the sidewalk last summer. Another family shared how they were fined $312 for leaving their trash can out 15 minutes too early. The stories kept pouring in. People who had stayed silent for years suddenly found their voice. The turning point came when 3 other families with kids showed up at Maria's driveway on a random Tuesday evening. They brought their own balls and folding chairs. "We're tired of this," one dad said. They started playing right there in the open, laughing loud enough for the whole street to hear. Karen Whitaker drove by slowly in her spotless white SUV but didn't stop. For once, she had no immediate letter ready. Word spread fast through Oakwood Estates. Within days, a small group of residents demanded an emergency meeting. Maria stood up in the community room and spoke calmly, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. She didn't attack Karen personally. She simply laid out how the rules were being weaponized against normal families trying to live. The board tried to shut it down, but the damage was done. People had seen the pattern. 47 days after that first letter arrived on Tuesday the 4th, the HOA quietly dropped all threats against the Gonzalez family. No more fines, no more warnings. The yellow signs disappeared overnight. On the last evening of that long fight, Maria stood in the driveway again. Carlos was dribbling the ball beside her. This time, 4 other kids from the neighborhood joined in. No one said much. Maria just looked straight toward the camera mounted near the garage. The one that had started all this trouble? She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just stood there, shoulder to shoulder with her son and the others, breathing in the warm Texas air while the sound of bouncing balls echoed down the street. Sometimes the smallest acts of defiance aren't loud. They're just refusing to disappear. And in that moment, you can't help but wonder about your own front yard, your own rules, your own quiet battles with people who hide behind pieces of paper and polite voices. How much are you willing to let them take before you finally stand up?